Good evening, everyone. I, Ankita Dutta, project lead for the Mask Stories at tellmeyourstory.biz, welcome you to the first panel discussion with our project delegate, writer, and editor ABHA Iyengar. ABHA is an award winning, internationally published poet, author, editor, and a British Council certified creative writing mentor. She has authored 8 books across various genres and forms, a short story anthology, The Other. She is the founder of Creative Wings Studio and has recently curated and edited 2 flash fiction anthologies titled Kintsugi and Skin. She writes poems in Hindi as well. Her poem film Parvaz won a special jury prize in Patras, Greece. Her most recent published work is a collection of flash fiction titled The Full Platter. We also have with us Sumaa Tekur and Ruma Chakraborty, whose poems are now a proud part of the anthology The Masked Stories, available globally through Amazon.com. Suma is a Bengaluru based editor and cultural observer who started her professional career with leading publications like The Times of India, Deccan Herald, Femina, and DNA. She has also contributed to various British dailies and holds a master's in international journalism from City University, London. Suma not only dabbles in various forms of writing, but she also teaches yoga and pursues the mystic arts and the occult sciences. Ruma here is a senior English faculty in a premium institution in Kolkata, an amateur painter with her art having been exhibited at ICCR Gallery Gold, Gaganendra Pradarshanshala in Kolkata, and Art Compendium Art Mela Delhi, a budding poet and compulsive storyteller. Currently, she is in the process of writing a compendium of short stories. An alumna of Loreto School, St. Xavier's College, and Calcutta University, an intrepid traveler, a typical Bengali in matters of food, an example of the argumentative Indian, and an inquisitive learner to boot. She claims herself to be a quintessential Renaissance woman. I welcome you all. So,
Thank you.
firstly, I would like to ask you, Abha, is flash fiction breaking boundaries worldwide? I mean, where do you see Indian flash fiction featuring in the literary scenario?
Thank you, Ankita, for the introduction and also for this question. I think flash fiction's always been there. It's always been present. We have writers like Joyce Carol Oates, Jamaica Kincaid. Then we have Lydia Davis, Margaret Atwood. There are many writers of flash. But in India, it has been a long time coming, as they say, because in 2003, when I began writing flash fiction, seems a long time ago, it is a long time ago, people would look at me and say, "What is flash fiction?" And they'd just sort of brush it away. And but now I see that it has suddenly garnered a lot of interest. I think in the last couple of years, that is sort of in India, suddenly sort of everyone's woken up to flash fiction and realized exactly how enthralling it is to write something which is short but packs a punch, and realized the potency of flash fiction, because and it suits our times. It suits the people of the 21st century who may not be wanting to, like, you can just read one flash, let it go, or read a flash and a couple of flashes, and or just continue reading them, and you have a whole variety of stories at your disposal. So now things are looking up, and through my Creative Wing Studio, where I am now publishing, I'm calling for submissions and publishing ebooks, which deal only with Flash. I'm asking for submissions for Flash fiction writings, and people have been nervous about it at first, but now they're kind of jumping in and enjoying it. And you get a renewed sense of confidence when you write something different, but it works. Yeah.
Yes, that's there absolutely. So, now your book, The Full Platter, which I already introduced in the bio, it has been compared with Puchka. It's there in the back cover. So I,
Hmm.
would like to know as to who suggested the title and the comparison altogether. I mean, why Fuchka.
Okay, let me show you the book first because it's really beautifully, the cover is beautifully done. And it's flash fiction. It's written like the full platter. Yeah, so full platter is actually one of the stories, is the title of one of the stories in this collection. And Kirti Sen Gupta, who is with Hawakal Publishers, the editor, he and I were sort of wondering about the titles, and we zoned in on three titles, and then we decided this was the best, and it worked. It really works because it's like you're offering these various assortments of food, which are in small portions of food, and it will sort of suit everyone's taste. I mean, someone will find something or the other which they will sort of associate with, or understand or communicate with, and that story will communicate with them. And till now, it's sort of, the stories have really sort of, whoever's bought the book, whoever read the stories, I've been very thrilled because the response has been tremendous. So yeah, and puchka. Okay, puchka is like, anyone who's had puchka will know what I'm talking about. It's small, it's round, and it sort of just sort of breaks up in your mouth. You have to put it fully in your mouth. It breaks up in your mouth, and then there's an explosion of all these flavors. Which that's hot and sweet and tangy and spicy and everything. And then it sort of, you can have the next one, and you can have the next one, and you can have the next one. And I've had about maybe 16 at one time at a go, and not felt satisfied, like, okay, and then I'll give it a gap and have some more. So this came as an epiphany when I was writing at the back. I only wrote the back blurb for the book. It just came to my mind. It was just, and I said, yeah, I think it works. But anyone who's not familiar with puchka, then read my flash fiction and get familiar with the whole idea of puchka, and then go ahead and have a puchka also, because it is called golgappa here. I think in Delhi, I think we call it golgappa, but puchka is, I think, very much a Calcutta word. It's like jhalmuri, like if you've had associate with a particular city. Yeah. So I think
So we
my
can.
flash fiction is very much like that, like a puchka.
So you want the emotional attachment, with your book to be on the same level as we all have our souls, imprisoned by Puchka, maybe, kind of.
Uh, well, if Ankita, your soul is imprisoned by a puchka, I'm sure it'll be imprisoned by flash fiction. Just go ahead and try it. And if anybody else, and if your souls aren't imprisoned by the puchkas, please go ahead and have a puchka and then compare the taste with flash fiction. I think yes, absolutely, absolutely. That's what I hope for.
So,
Thank you.
ta- taking cue from the previous question that I asked, so I can say that these short stories, they're replete with layers of hidings. I mean, I would like to ask you to interpret for us the relation that's between mask and the microfictions that you take pleasure in composing. I mean, do you find there is any relation, and is the relation of any importance? Because this is the poetry of masks, so.
Yeah, okay. Yes, of course. Like, in the sense that, when we think of masks, of course, you can interpret it in many ways, but I would say that, like, when we are born or when we are kids, we are vulnerable. And then slowly we build up all these barriers and masks. And I really believe it's a lot of social conditioning at work, because otherwise, how would we get stereotyped, we get gendered, and we start putting all these masks because we don't want to show our vulnerability to the world. We don't want to be hurt. So all this is what masks are all about, you know, and there's pretensions. So what are you doing when we are in when we are? Yeah, flash fiction is actually that sort of, you are sort of peeling the onion. You are unmasking. One mask is removed, the other mask is removed, and you actually reveal the truths through that writing, through the writing of that flash fiction. And these are very small stories, but there are layers within the stories, definitely. And you can read a story first, and then you can read it again, and you definitely get another nuance and another thought process happening. And if I can give an example. There's a story. There's a story, let's say, Hold Still is one of the stories, in which a boy is traumatized by the death of his sister, and then he's supposed to, that's not addressed at all. He is married off at the age of 25 because that's the norm. Then his wife is he can't sort of have any human connection with his, I mean, not any personal, any physical connection with his wife because of whatever's happened. And his wife starts being called Banj, or without having a childless, and then she waits, she cares for him, she waits for him, but then she gets a lover and she has a kid, because that's what society expects. And so, as per the mask which is presented to the society, it's a happy married life, they have their child and they're living a normal life, right? But what is happening to the two individuals, what kind of selves their identities and their sense of self and what they're going through, we are not aware of. So this is just one example, this is one story which gives an idea of how my stories will relate to masks, how society, the conditioning, the what we are expected, or the certain kind of behavioral patterns. Boys don't cry, girls must not laugh. Just let's take gender
Laugh loudly,
dictats
yeah.
us. Yeah, okay. So this is all there. This is all there in various forms, and we have to do when we as readers, the flash fiction. What does it do? The story is revealing the truth. The truth is peeling off the layers, and it's revealing truths. And I think that's the whole idea of writing, because it's a mirror to society. It is a reflection of society. It tells us what society um, needs to learn, what we as individuals and writers have this responsibility, that they have to, I mean, I believe that it's not necessary that everyone believes that, but I think we owe a responsibility to show
Absolutely.
society what it is, and that's how change happens. Yeah. Yes, that's how change
Yes.
happens.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So, let's move on to Ruma, and I would like to ask you, what was your premise behind the poem? I mean, if you could enlighten us as
Uh,
to why
you know,
you thought that you should, pen down these lines.
Thank you, Ankita, for that question. And I'd like to take on what Abhaman just said. I loved the way she discussed her flash fiction, and I love the fact that the book is called A Full Platter. Because you see, I believe that we've moved on to this age where people don't have the leisurely pace in which books were read once upon a time. We really don't have the time, b the proclivity. So a full platter of literally bite-sized tapas is what is there in that
Yeah.
book. And as ma'am said, that it's been described as a puchka, which is literally an explosion of flavors in your mouth. In the same way, as ma'am said, that the mask, we use the mask on various levels. And as women, I think we are masters in the art of donning masks.
True.
From morning till night, we don multiple masks. And, the scary bit of it is that some we realize are masks, and some have fitted in so well and gelled that they've become us. We're not even consciously aware that those are masks that we are donning consciously. They just slip in almost unconsciously. And I think as a poet or as a writer, as ma'am's a writer, and I also write short stories, and I realize that to deliver the idea in a crux, in a nutshell, is extremely essential. Because you see, when we write larger fiction, it might meander and it might lose our audience, who need a sense of urgency and must actually understand whether it is resonating with them or not. Ankita, if you were reading a rambling book and the first 3 pages have not got your attention, chances are you will go back to it maybe again a couple of times and then just lose steam and leave. You would want it to be something that resonates with you from the word go. I think flash fiction and poetry today, pretty much the same thing. Even poetry comes in flashes, like I mean bite-sized poetry, small poetry which have BYTE as well as BITE. So both of them combine to give you the experience. And the reason why I chose to write the kind of poems that I write, or a lot of people say that, is it not very subjective? Is it not pertaining to who you are, or is it not pertaining to what your beliefs are? Are we not the most convincing when we passionately believe in something? Are we not the most revealing and most expressive and lucid when it has to do with what we believe in?
True.
I think that's where the origin or the genesis of my poetry lies. That I believe in what I'm writing because I feel about what I'm writing. And yes, you may accuse it of being very subjective sometimes, but let's begin with the subjective and then move on to something else, perhaps once I have mastered the art of speaking out. I mean, I feel like that.
That was wonderful. So, as you were explaining, I would like to ask you to, I have this request that along with this sweet introduction, can we listen to a few verses? A short excerpt
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
poem.
I'll read out a short one of my poems, and Abha ma'am and Suma, I'd like you to sort of give me a quick, instant flash reaction, because you see, we are into the quick reactive phase here, and because I've been accused of it being subjective, you will instantly tell me if it resonates with you, and therefore, will you kind of agree with this donning of masks that we do on a regular basis? This poem is called Hooded, and this is, I think, every woman's tale. The alarm sets off the day, responses on autopilot, the drudgery of daily routines, the white noise of words, gestures, postures, acts. One day slips into the other. In seamless motion, no jarring stress. Tick tock, chimes the daily clock. Surface a limpid pool of steady calm. Inside the mind, the ghostly self pushes itself up on its haunches and launches off a silent scream. The ripples of that sound ricochet off the walls, bouncing off with sharp jabs of something like pain. Smilingly, handing out the dinner in the broadly lit room, with hooded, dilated eyes, the only indicators of the noise within. As ma'am said, what looks like a normal family, what looks like a normal relationship, is much less than normal. The woman looks very normal as she potters around the house doing her bit, or potters around at her workplace doing her bit. You just scratch the surface a little bit and the can of worms is opened.
This hooded, dilated eyes, I think that kind of stays with me. So the hooded, dilated eyes, because I think that is a reflection of everything which your that poem is all about. The fact that what is hidden within is only evident there, but that is also hooded, so that she doesn't want the world to know. And that's exactly what we're always hiding. What is the truth? We we have been conditioned not to respond, not to speak up, I think. And I also understand what Ruma is saying about being passionate and talking about what your work is a reflection of you and your surroundings and your times, or what you have heard or what you have read. It can't be away from that, however much you divorce yourself or try to divorce yourself from it, that this is not me. No, it may not be you, but it could be someone you know. It could be someone whose experience you can feel for. What is happening in Afghanistan is not us, but it is us. It is us as human beings, it is us as women especially. So you can't sort of divorce yourself. And the truth is, as Ruma, I think this truth is for every woman who's doing what your protagonist in your poem is doing. Thank you for it.
Thank you.
Those are very beautiful lines, Ruma. For me, what stood out the most was the sound ricocheting off the walls. It's again a representation that there's no place for the sound to escape. So it kind of bounces all off the walls and it comes back to you. Again, an indication that we're somehow closed in, and there isn't enough space to fully express ourselves and for the voices to go out into the world. So yeah, very well read also.
Thank you. And
Abs-
I'd also like to say this. I think I speak on behalf of me as well as every woman that I would like to speak for. As ma'am said, that Afghanistan is not us. It's the Afghan women who are suffering. But basically, at a very grassroots level, we all feel it. If we don't, then there's something intrinsically wrong with us, and that is again conditioning. If we feel and yet not speak, that is conditioning. If we feel and speak, that is reconditioning, and it is also trying to
Right.
recondition society, and it is also creating a lot of ripples and ricochet. Because you see, it may or may not go down well. And I think that the poet, the author, as Abhaman said very correctly, has a duty to use their craft, if possible, to bring about at least an awareness. You just talk
Awareness.
about it. It's as Ronan Keating said in his song, it's only words. But words are all I have. Isn't it? As a writer, that is all that I have at my disposal. They are my craft, they are my weapons. Make it what you want to of that. And if we can combine both, these words can become our weapons of change. And what better than to at least see people reading and nodding in assent, or at least their eyes not being hooded when they read your poem. Oh, that's what I think.
Exactly. I mean, that was actually one of the reasons that we took this topic, mask, because mask is not just the piece of cloth that we are wearing so much during this COVID period, because mask is so much, so much more than that single small piece of cloth. So obviously we wanted to have different interpretations from all levels, from all genders, and all across boundaries. So obviously it was wonderful to listen to the poem, its interpretations, and obviously the flash reactions. Very well, thank you so much. And so I would move on to Suma, and I would ask you, what were your thoughts when you were drafting the poem A Date? I mean,
Okay.
was it personal? Why this theme?
It's heavily inspired by personal experience. I wouldn't say 100%, but it did, it was triggered by a meeting I had with one such gentleman. So just to give everyone, a background of my poem, it's titled A Date, like Ankita said, and the setting is in a pub where a boy and a girl meet for the first time on a date, and it's during the pandemic. The date unfolds, and as the date unfolds, the boy's, symbolic mask starts peeling off layer by layer, and that is one part of the story, the symbolic mask. But then what happens towards the end? He actually wears the mask while leaving, and that's when she fully understands him. So in a way, there's a counterintuitive insight that you also know someone by understanding what they're trying to hide. We all have secrets, and the more we want to hide some aspects of our lives, the more it reveals who we are. So that was the intention of the poem. So I'll read a few lines. This is the beginning of the poem. The high stool hid his real height. He stood to hug me, 5 feet and a few short inches. The table was as tall as his chest. He made calls while I waited, unimportant calls, for something he didn't need right away, and then complained that the world was inefficient. He's a businessman, no time for lies or lethargy. His hands trembled, his voice squeaky loud. I have a fetish for shoes. I have 7,000 vinyl records in my collection. I have been to Italy 16 times. I collect the best fragrances from around the world. I had a supercar that I crashed. It killed a man and sent me to hospital for a month. Then I decided to never drive a supercar again because I love my parents. I am humble. I clean my 6-bedroom mansion every day when the city went into a lockdown. He told the waiter to clean our table again. He didn't like the chicken satay in mint sauce. He gave detailed instructions to the chef. His hands danced. More calls interrupted his monologue. I think he'd rehearsed it all. His best friend's caller ID is Strawberry. His eyes twinkled in puppy love as he answered. He secretly clicked my picture and shared it with her. Who is this? She barked on the other end. You know who it is. His voice disappointed and defiant. Yeah, that's just a sample. So just know how it ends, you have to read the full poem.
This is. I loved the way you talked about a few short inches and how the table came up to his chest. So he's compensating for God knows what he thinks are his shortcomings with a whole lot of loud posturing. This is such a typical mask.
Yeah.
Yes,
So there's a
yeah.
Napoleon complex also, that he's trying to overcompensate for in the
Yes.
thing he says, but his height reveals more
Yes.
than he wants to hide.
And the tremble of the hand and these constant reminders of his wealth and his how he's a good law-abiding citizen and a good son, and all the posturings, good lord, it's replete with all the postures. And yet you understand that this is quite a sorry and a really nondescript
Yes.
individual, I would say. It is
As
so
you
I would love
as
to
you
read
go
it.
towards the end, yeah, as you go towards the end, and as you read the the last few lines, it's just marvelous, because this whole thing describes the guy as something, like out of the world, or he thinks that he is someone who's like this and that. And then when he wears the mask and the description of his eyes and all, it's just lovely. So yeah, the poem is obviously we all have to read it again. And
Suma could read those lines, the last few
Yes,
lines, so
yeah,
we get an
sure,
idea. Yeah.
sure,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, so from where I left off the last time, he goes on and on, talking about himself, and he also prevents the girl from talking about herself. He doesn't even ask her questions. Um, so here's the last bit, just a bit. Yeah, I think I'll read from here. Um, yeah. I pulled his Facebook profile. It was full of expensive things. It was full of separation. I have, you don't. His female best friend stood by him in all photos, a social crutch, his gateway to the world of dates. He always smiled with lips firmly shut to hide his buck teeth. He always clipped top angle pictures to hide his height. Widowed, his status said. I expected a story of loss, but it was only a lie he told to fend off status hunting vultures. Did it work? I asked. Yes, he said, beaming with pride. These are women who only want to party. I sold my car. I got a good rate for it. I upgrade to the latest iPhone every year. I eat at five-star restaurants and at roadside stalls. We waited for the elevator. I looked at his shoes. I always wear custom shoes. I like things that fit well. He wore his mask. I saw his eyes for the first time. Desperate, dark, deprived. I want more attention, they screamed. I love the thrill of the chase. You chase me, I chase you. The sun dipped behind the antennas. I reached home as night fell.
Yeah, it's quite sad actually. It's quite
Yeah.
sad because the desperation and the darkness and there's a sense of lack which he's making up for. That's very evident. And of course, and also that again, that whole thing, whether it's him, he's so full of himself, or whether it's also due to gender that you don't let the woman speak and you just talk about yourself and your life and what you're all about. I mean, it may not be this pompous ass who he seems to be, but it may be anyone else. I mean, generally, not giving space to the other individual. That's what's happening here.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel a sense of sorrow. I feel a sense of sadness for this fellow that, like, after all, he is trying to live up to some expectations again, which are being generated by society, that you have to be this way so that money doesn't buy him love. Money can't buy you love is very much evident here.
True.
Despite all this, the girl is obviously not going to have anything to do with him.
Yes.
And there you are, it's very much there, the mask. And I love this, that when he wears the mask, you actually see his eyes for the first time, and you see what they denote. So the
Yeah.
whole thing unravels in that way.
With that, actually, my intention was to also bring up this new thing in physical spaces, public physical spaces, where all of us are now wearing masks, and the most expressive part of our body, the face, is hidden. So when the face is hidden and you can't really see how you're approaching another person, you're looking for other clues to understand them. So you're looking at dress, you're looking at their eyes, which then become more prominent. You're looking at their setting, you're looking at, how they approach you. So it's like, a person with some sort of visual impairment overcompensating with the other senses of smell and touch. So this is us trying to do this, and I think we're going to have to do more and more of that as we all walk around with masks till this pandemic is over. But to your point earlier about sorrow, for me, what struck me most with this person was loneliness. I mean, and you put it very rightly that even money can't buy him a good girlfriend, but that is the very thing he is fighting against, because he's so lonely that he's saying, okay, at least if I like pretend to wear this mask of being humble, I can get a girlfriend. And that's just falling flat on his face because he just doesn't know how to. So that's when the mask drops and reveals who you are.
You can also interpret it as the pathetic loneliness that is almost symptomatic of modern living.
Yes.
So the more we get materially rich, if I can put it that way, the more we seem to be completely dissociated with what is actually what we need. And this man, with all his posturing and his talk about a lot of hot air, you prick that balloon of hot air, and what really comes out of it at the end of it all is a very deflated piece of man. I would say it's not even a full man there. Bits and pieces of the man you can get. And he causes one to pity him. Definitely not what he's looking for. And there's also, I would say, a certain sense of revulsion. He's about as attractive as a beetle that crawled out from under a stone. You can't turn your eyes away because it is so repulsive, and yet that you still want to look. He gives us that feeling, and this is a very beautiful poem. It's a lovely poem, and it's so real, and the mask is so obvious. Layers of masks are so obvious.
Also, I think you talked about this you and me, that separation bit, which I thought also is very much part of, like, I am this and you are not this, what I am. And also, when you bring in Facebook and you talk about social media, I just want to make this point about how that is another mask we are presenting all the time. Our real lives are not what we are presenting ourselves to be in social media. They cannot be like that. But we're having the best parties, we're wearing the best clothes, you may be doing it once a month, but you'll post like 10 photos of that on Insta, and everyone says, wow, she's leading such a great life. It's so much posting. It's just out there for us. I think that's one of the greatest drawbacks. I mean, social media is fantastic in many ways, but one of the biggest drawbacks is that it's like that mask which you're presenting all the time. You are no longer human. You're this totally, the persona is a totally different persona which you're presenting to the world. It is a momentary persona, but that's what people start thinking that you have or you are. What this guy is doing in the poem again, all this posturing, all this putting across stuff, it's even as you're saying, this sense of separation. You create through your profiles and your social media presentations the sense of separation. I am better than you because I am doing this. I think that is also something which is again masks is all about today.
Yeah. I think the other point also I'd like to add is the question of trust, which I feel the wealthier a person is, they find it more difficult to attract. They don't know whom to trust. And somewhere in this poem, I've tried to bring that out, the fact that he is trying very hard to be the most authentic version of himself because he wants to gain your trust. And being so wealthy, he finds it difficult to trust people. That,
Others.
they are there not for his money, but they're there to value him as a person. So that also is something I wanted to project.
He's a prisoner of his own money. And that's
Yeah.
Yeah, something like
so
that.
sad. It ought to bring him happiness. I mean, at least he's posturing that it's bringing him a lot of happiness. But you really feel very sorry for him at the end. It's a sad kind of a sorry, I would say. But such a beautiful poem.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that sad kind of a sorry was what I felt very. It was lovely to read. I mean, that's what I wanted to highlight in the poem. That the ending is very lovely, very much different than what you would think of. But yeah, absolutely. So we have been discussing a date now. Abha, would you like to? I mean, do you have any questions, or would you like to say something about sabbatical?
Okay, I in sabbatical, I think what came across to me was a person again trying to make the relationship happen, not allowing the pain which he's experiencing or he's experiencing, but I think it's a she experiencing during in that relationship to surface. And so the wounds, I mean, it's like the feelings will surface, but you will pretend to those feelings are not the true feelings. You are going to pretend and you're going to say, no, everything's fine. And you want things to work out. And your words will speak something else. They're not speaking about the pain which you're feeling inside because of what you have experienced during the relationship. So the sabbatical is that the pain is hiding itself. It's taken a holiday. Yeah, so that's what came across to me, and I think again it's that mask which we wear, which again the hooded eyes, the hooded dilated eyes. You are hiding the truth from yourself and from the rest of the world, especially from yourself. You don't want to allow it to surface. That's what came across to me as very important, and one can totally relate to such things, such a poem. The mask of hiding the truth, of hiding the pain. I think so many of us are going through this, and I see it happening, or maybe that we are more outspoken, so we hear of it more. But yeah, one hears of this more, one learns of this more. And I believe like communication and speaking what we feel becomes the first step we must take. We've always been, I mean, I can talk of myself, like, women are supposed to be seen, not heard. You have to be soft spoken, you have to be gentle, you have to be caring, you have to be serving, you have to think to put the other person in front of you. I mean, I can talk of what I have learned while growing up. So to break those kind of rules and barriers and start talking is so essential, that you speak your mind, because I'll just give you a simple example. Like once I was telling my son something, and he said, "Hey, Mom, unless you tell me what you're experiencing, what you're going through, how am I supposed to know? I mean, just by your expression, I'm not supposed to know exactly what you're." So we must communicate with words what we are feeling, because we expect the other person to understand, but most often the other person will not understand unless you speak.
Yes.
Yes. So
So,
And that is such a beautiful estimation of my poem, I would say. And I'd like to just say that, when you said that we must know how to voice our feelings, we must also know how to voice our negative thoughts. It is okay
exactly.
to voice our negative thoughts. My poem was about, when you have this inability to let the supurating wounds show, there's a certain amount of shame with the person who's experiencing those sores too. And that is exactly when you allow it to kind of go into the recesses at the back of your filing system in the mind, and that's where that supurating sore remains in sabbatical, and that pain
Yeah.
surfaces every now and then, whenever you have weakened, or whenever the climate is right for an insurgency. And if you don't address it, if you don't address the negative thoughts, if you don't allow the negative thoughts to sort of heal in the normal way, and actually tamper with the welt every time by suppressing it, you're not getting anywhere with that pain. The pain will remain. It will always remain, maybe on the back burner, and it will surface when you least expect it to blow up on your face.
Yeah. Yeah, very much
absolutely,
so.
that was the beauty of the poem. So, Abha, do you have any questions to ask related to their
I
poems or?
actually wanted to ask Suma, in fact, why that girl went on the date when her friend had said that, well, he's a loud mouth and a blabbermouth, and why she did not check the Facebook profile earlier.
That's a tricky question.
Perhaps for the experience, perhaps to come back and write the poem.
Perhaps not trusting the friend's words.
I
And
would
Perhaps.
saying,
say,
let me find out for myself. I'll have to know
Myself.
the truth.
And always these friends who won't want to see you,
Be
living a good
happy.
life.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
perhaps,
we have
yeah,
those
yeah,
backstabbing friends also. They'll say
yeah,
that that guy is not good, but then
yeah,
you'll see that she has set herself up with that guy. So the
yeah.
protagonist is not trusting her friend.
Suma,
I
it
think
also feels
another,
like she's curious. She's really genuinely
Ah,
curious. She
yeah,
wants
I
to
yeah.
know.
agree. I think,
As women, we are curious souls. We want to dig where we shouldn't. And I think that girl kind of exemplifies that feeling
Hmm.
of, let's find out for oneself. Let's find out for myself. Was there any
Too
truth
much
to my friend's
curiosity.
saying?
And I
Curiosity.
think also, yeah, I think also there's a lot of learning that girl must have, that
Yes,
protagonist must have got through this whole thing. A lot of learning
true.
of her own self, of her own, of not only this other guy, but of
yeah,
what she
what she
wants.
doesn't want.
That is important.
Yeah.
That is important.
Maybe, the other way to look at it also could be that there was another angle to her own loneliness,
Yes.
Hmm.
and she wanted to explore, maybe just a brief encounter with someone, anyone. And it
I
talks about, the times that we live in, the pandemic, where human interaction is minimized to the, to
Oh yes,
minimized.
that totally came through. I mean, I could feel
Yeah.
that why would this girl, and then I was figuring it out. Why would this girl do this? And I realized that it's so much that we just need that human connect, or just
Oh,
meeting
yes.
someone, or just getting to know someone. There's apart from that, there's so much. I mean, the human interaction is like, apart from this, the human interaction is totally removed. And just going out and seeing live people, or even stray dogs, or just some movement of cars on the street, I think that itself is very liberating for us in these times.
Yeah.
So yeah, that came through that, like, of course, so much of herself, also seeking some kind of some kind of, perhaps he could have been the companion she wanted. You never know. That was the curiosity bit.
Yes,
I think the lack of touch, whether it's physical touch or social touch, is prominent now more than ever before for this
yes.
generation. And we perhaps don't realize just how much we need it. Um,
So the
yeah,
human
I
connection,
don't
the
know the
human
answer,
connection.
so we're just guessing.
Yeah, the human connection. I think the pandemic has really sort of created a situation, especially for children also, and young people and children, everyone actually, who loneliness is the biggest killer actually. So apart from all these other issues which have come up because of COVID, loneliness is something we have to deal with every day, and so we have to make sure that we interact and with people, talk with people, discuss things, communicate. It's essential. It's essential. And if you have family and people at home, and if you have friends, it makes a big difference.
It is. Absolutely.
And any questions about a sabbatical? I mean, any other theme that you thought is quite going with the
I
poem?
would like to actually, if you all don't mind, read something because it came to me. It's a part of a poem which I had written, and sort of it does have something to do with. So I'll just read a few lines. Um, yeah, is that fine with you all?
Yes,
Yes, we'd love to
absolutely.
hear.
Absolutely.
So this is titled "And Rain Falls Blindly," and I will read up to the point where the spade ends. I look out of the window. I do not want to see the day. It holds no promise for me. The sun shines and then it begins to rain. I continue to watch. It makes no difference to me. I wish someone would call, say they want to talk to me. I wish someone would write, say they want to be my friend. I wish someone would ring the bells, say they want to hold my hand. I wish someone would tear the mask off my face and say, I want to know you. The rain falls blindly, it does not want to see.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So I
That
would like to ask
that
for the
haunting
for
sense of alienation and loneliness, God. It's so beautiful and so painful at the same time.
May I ask which book or which poem this is from?
Okay, this is from a collection called Yearnings, my collection of poems. And the title of this poem is And Rain Falls Blindly. Yeah, so this is now not no longer in print, but it's available as an ebook. So on Amazon. So if you're interested in reading the poems, you're most welcome.
Yeah,
I just thought it just happened that I thought of the masks, and I said this poem is so much there. And when during our discussion, I realized that it's so much there. This is just one part of the poem, but the relevant part sort of continues. And it's raining also nowadays in Delhi, at least. So
yeah,
raining in Kolkata
training
also
here
more at
also.
times.
yeah.
Ma'am, I'd
Appreciated
like to just
absolutely.
ask Abha ma'am a question.
Sure.
Ma'am, you have a collection of poems, I think, or short stories that are called Kintsugi.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think since we are talking about masks, we don the mask because we want to appear perfect. We don the mask because we want to hide our true feelings. We don the mask because we don't want to appear vulnerable and thus weak. And when we have realized that all these masks are just fake and false, we realize that we are Kintsugi because we are imperfectly perfect. We are broken and we have stuck ourselves at those broken spots with the glue of determination and grit and have turned out a little wonky in the process. However, that very imperfection makes us absolutely perfect.
Beautiful. Very well said, Ruma. You have
Because
really put something so difficult to define into words. It's really beautifully said. Thank you for it.
because I'd like to say that this little sorority of us, that we are the four of us here, we've been discussing for close to an hour about masks and about feelings. Let's kind of accept the fact that we are all broken in various ways, and the naysayers in our lives will say in more ways than one. And I think once you own that brokenness, that's when you realize that we don't need those masks. We can do away with them.
Yeah, very well said. Yes, and that being perfect in our imperfectness,
Yeah.
essential. To realize that, acknowledge that, to appreciate that. Very, very true. Yes.
Because I think it was started off with Suma with her date, the poem, and then you took it on with the rain, and that kind of made me feel like this.
That's very, very well
We
said.
have
Very well put.
interpreted, we have interpreted a lot of layers of masks. I mean, a lot. Not only just what we as women are accustomed to, but also for the masks of the society, the masks of money, and a lot of other layers. I mean, we here have. I mean, with this, I would like to wind up today's session. We have an audience question. Who we have Shreya Ray, who asks, "Are we trying to cover our real face with a mask, or trying to fit our face into our mask?"
Wow. That's such
So,
I think I'll just answer, and then Ruma and
absolutely.
Suma can take it
Yes,
on.
ma'am.
I feel that yes, we are trying to fit our faces into the masks which society has designed for us very much. And once we remove that mask or get rid of that mask, is when we actually appear as perhaps broken, repaired, and more beautiful, and but ourselves, our true identity surface. But it takes a lot of grit and determination, and but yes, otherwise I think we are not only, it's not so much wearing the mask, but try to fit it to because when you're trying to fit into the mask, you're also trying to wear the mask, right? So it's not only that are we trying to wear the mask and try to, when if the mask doesn't fit properly, then we have adjust ourselves to that mask, so the mask begins to fit. It's a very good question, thank you for it.
So,
I agree. And I think, we meet our truest and most authentic self only when all the masks are off and all the masks are dropped, and, there's no more pretense, there's no more trying to fit into anyone else's version of us. So, yeah, even the process of trying to fit into a mask that society gives us is also a pretense. So, yeah, it's only when all masks are off we know who we are, really.
And taking off from where our ma'am said that once we are trying to fit ourselves into the mask, we'll find a way of fitting into it. Once we can take it off, I think we are scared of the intimacy it will require for me to come face to face with myself.
Yeah.
It's scary because we are so acclimatized to being someone else in everybody else's eyes that when you have to face that very existential question of who am I without that
The
mask.
naked truth, it's the naked truth.
Yes,
Which no one wants.
the intimacy that involves with
Yes.
self is something that perhaps we are not equipped to deal with, but maybe we've made a start. We are talking about it, and Ankita and Coral, we can't thank you enough for this podium. And Abha ma'am, your poem simply blew my mind, and Suma, I want to read yours too, and hopefully we could possibly get to read each other's poems. That would be the best form of validation of this podium too.
I
Thank you,
completely agree.
Ankita.
I completely agree. I want to thank, this poetry of masks, and Coral and Ankita for getting us all together, for Abha for all your insights, and for, giving us, so much back, about our own poems. So it was a lovely meeting. And yes, Ruma, I would love to read your full poem too. We will we will connect again.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, all of you. And it's been a wonderful session. Of course, we can go on and on talking about masks and poems and poetry and writing. And perhaps we'll meet again for sure, hopefully, sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this 1
And
hour is like a positive version of Suma's poem A Date. Kind of positive.
Yes,
This was a good
certainly.
date. This was a
Yes.
good date.
And like
This ended on a very positive note, and we've all learned a lot.
Ankita has put the nail on the head.
yes.